He asked me, what would you say if I told you your mom wasn't coming home?
She's going.
Back almost on the day that she went missing, her bank accounts were virtually empty.
There is no proof that she's dead. At that point, Laverne Mackey's case went cold.
This case was a 33-year-old case without a body.
When we got this phone call from Cold Justice, that changes the entire course of our investigation.
That's an old case, so the challenge was built in before we ever even got started.
Why would he be so mad about that?
Because I think he had something to do with it.
Holy mama.
The anticipation, the hype, and then he's not there.
Maybe we're beating our heads against a wall and getting people's hopes up for nothing.
This case is not going to go cold. Now it's hot, and we're going to finish it.
There's something you've been hiding all of this time.
Our murderer is going to walk out the door.
Who says she's dead?
Oh my God, wow.
There's a lot riding on this. This is our only shot.
I know you know. I can tell by looking at you.
If we can't get at a confession in this case, we had no case.
She didn't tell me a thing. She just didn't come home.
Now it's time to take the gloves off and go for broke.
My mother's name was Evelyn Laverne Trulock. My mother is a pretty serious person most of the time. She has a great smile, though. She's so beautiful, it lightens up her face when she smiles.
Laverne, my sister, was 8 years younger than myself, and so she always had a good word and a smile for everybody.
My dad, Larry Wallace, got out of the Navy, and he and my mother got married. Family was important to her. She was a great mom. Mom and Dad ended up getting divorced when I was probably 11 years old. That was hard. My mom was very active in the church. She sang in the choir. And our church had different ministries. There was a prison outreach ministry, and this was for nonviolent offenders, petty cases, misdemeanors. My mother met Merle Mackey through that prison outreach ministry. Eventually he became saved, went to the front of the church and professed his sins and asked God to come into his life and save him. It wasn't long before Merle asked my mom out on a date, and then very soon thereafter, they were getting married. I was not thrilled. I thought it was too soon. I was not crazy about Merle, to be honest. They got married so quick because her religion, she would never live with a man not being wed. So now we had stepdad added to the equation. It was okay at times, different aura in the house, a little bit with him there. And he, at times, would try to be very controlling and authoritative, and that didn't go over well. One day, I was informed that we were moving to the middle of nowhere. It was on 5 acres. We had no telephone, so there really wasn't anybody around. On November 5th, 1981, my mom saw me off to school that day. I got to school, and Merle was there to pick me up early from school, which was unexpected. So I asked Merle why he picked me up and where's my mom. He said to me she had to fly to Indiana to take care of your Uncle Kenneth. He and your aunt are both sick. As a few days go by, I did start to question Merle. Hey, when is mom coming home? Have you heard from her? And Merle asked me, what would you say if I told you your mom wasn't coming home? When he told me that my mom wasn't coming back, I was just confused. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm only 14 years old and afraid. All I can remember thinking is, well, where is she? Where is she? But he didn't have an answer for anything. I told him to take me to my dad's house, and we did that immediately. I knew that something wasn't right. She would never just vanish and leave without saying something to me.
Investigators search for her driving record, search her payroll records, Social Security, and there was absolutely no activity with her at all.
Merle Mackey was Laverne's husband at the time. Merle had a past. He was arrested. He was in prison a few times. It was all for nonviolent crimes, but he was the last one to see her alive.
Merle Mackey was interviewed in 1982, and he advised she wasn't missing at all. He advised that she took off, flew up to her brother's house, where she was going to help care for his ailing wife. Several weeks later, he says that she called or reached out to him and said, "No, I didn't fly up there at all. I'm actually in Tampa."
At the same time as he's talking to the investigators, he tells them, "Well, you know, I saw Laverne after that, and I saw her up in town. In fact, she told me that she was involved possibly with somebody else." And he gives a car and says, "Hey, she was driving this green Buick." One of the other stories that came up, Merle now says that Laverne went to go join a mission. I want to say Merle had more stories than Grimm's Brothers at this point. He kept changing everything. Investigators, as they're speaking to Merle, their sense of something wrong and didn't smell right was there. They knew that Merle wasn't telling everything. They knew also money was taken out a few times from Laverne's bank account on the day she disappeared. And eventually, a few months later, there was absolutely nothing left.
Now, whether it was her emptying them or whether it was Merle Mackey helping himself to it, they didn't know at that time. Today, it would be really easy to see that, but back then, all you had to do was fill out a slip, you got your money, there was no way to track or see who actually got it.
Investigators' sense of something wrong and didn't smell right was there, but at this point, there's no physical evidence, there's no sense of any crime scene. At that point, Laverne Mackey's case went cold.
As weeks turn into months and months turn into years eventually, you never give up hope, but so many different scenarios, everything you could even imagine haunts me.
After about 9 years, I have my sister legally declared dead. I had problems, and this is on a very personal note. One night I had a vision, and my sister appeared to me, and I wanted to reach out, talk to her and hug her. She backed away and said, "It's all right." She's gone.
When I first got assigned the cold case, the one case that stood out to me was on Laverne Mackey. I saw that her daughter Kelly had been in contact with the sheriff's office throughout the years, calling and checking on her mother. You don't find that in a lot of cases. The family drifts away, they forget, so Laverne wasn't forgotten.
Meeting with George, I knew he was really paying attention to the details in the case. It's like, thank you, Jesus.
We truly believe that, given a little more investigation, that this case was one that could be solved. In this day and time, with technology being what it is as well, we might be able to develop something that could bring some sort of closure for the family. However, this case was a 33-year-old case without a body, and that makes it one of the hardest cases to solve.
Everything changed when my sergeant at the time, Phil Lakin, had attended the National Homicide Conference. And Phil pitched this case to Kelly Sigler, who's from Cold Justice. Kelly immediately became interested and intrigued in it and began looking into Laverne's case.
My name is Kelly Sigler. I was a prosecutor in Houston and Harris County, Texas for 21 years. And then I got assigned to work nothing but cold cases and worked them steadily for 10 years. And now here we are on a TV show called Cold Justice. We have had many, many arrests. Some of them have already ended in convictions. Working on cold justice, we go all over this country working with cops to try our best to solve cold cases with them. When I first read the Mackey case, I was like, whoa, that's an old case. So the challenge was built in before we ever even got started.
That's quite a lock on that front door. This was a all or nothing.
You telling me the truth right now? Or you bullshit me? I'm telling you the straight business.
Now the chess game has gotten serious.
Can we prove there's a crime? I don't know.
It was devastating.
That's it. Okay, I'm done.
And maybe we shouldn't keep doing this if we're just going to let people down.
This case was a 33-year-old case without a body.
After all of the initial conversations,
Let's go, sunshine. Let's do it.
Cold Justice agreed to work the case with the Hernando County Sheriff's Department. It was at that time 33 years old, and we didn't know what we were going to find until we got there.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Yolanda.
Steve, Yolanda, and I met George and Randy and worked the case with them the whole time we were there.
George, can you tell us about the day that she went missing?
November 5th, 1981.
After November 5th, Laverne basically disappeared, and the last person to have contact or knew of was Merle. At this point in the investigation, Merle Mackey is our prime suspect because he is the last person who's seen Laverne, and he's given inconsistent statements from his numerous interviews with law enforcement.
Reading Merle Mackey's statement. I read a statement, I'm reading every word out of his mouth. And his words are his words. He's locked into them. He can't take them back. When you put all of his stories together and all of his lies together, they come up making him a big fat liar.
Missing question mark, okay? First obvious one is no body found.
If this case were ever to go to trial, a defense lawyer would say, she went off, she did run off, she's out there somewhere living her life or passed away after running off. So you can't ignore that.
Maybe she met somebody.
How about suicide? She runs away and kills herself.
You have to ask all of those questions too to do a nice, thorough job.
There are plenty of reasons that Laverne might have run away. But if she was murdered, there is only one suspect in any of our minds.
With every murder case that you handle, there comes that first meeting with the family.
Hi, I'm Kelly also.
Hi, Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'll never forget her, first of all, because her name is Kelly, and her mother's name is Evelyn, which is what my mom's name is.
Did there come a time or a day where you kind of reconciled yourself to the idea that your mom wasn't ever coming back?
Yeah, and I think that happened a long time ago.
As we drove away that day, I remember talking to George and going, damn, George, we can't let her down.
Hello?
Hi, can I speak with William Estes, please?
The first thing is trying to knock out all the witnesses who knew Evelyn Mackey, who knew what kind of mother she was to Brian and Kelly. Did she ever talk about running off? Did she ever hint she wanted to do that?
We have to go and re-interview women in church, a pastor, everybody we could find.
Had any problems with maybe suicide or thoughts of that?
Not that I ever heard.
Did she ever mention to you anything about maybe wanting to be a missionary? And
No, I never heard that.
There is no way she would leave her kids without, no.
Do you remember having a confrontation with Merle at church?
Yes, I do.
He told me to keep my big mouth shut
that's
because I had asked where Laverne was.
That's right.
So why would he be so mad about that?
Because I think he had something to do with it.
With every witness that we talked to, we felt like we were that much further along in establishing the fact to present to a jury that Laverne Mackey did not just up and walk away. This was a beautiful case, but the foundation was supposed to be based on these statements, these lies, these stories that Merle told everyone about why Laverne went missing in the first place.
What about the two detectives that got all those great statements out of Merle?
they're both deceased.
In a courtroom, I can't just stand up and say, Your Honor, I offer this transcript. I have to call a witness to sponsor it through. Well, those cops were dead. So you have this evidence, but there's no way to get it into the courtroom. In order for this case to move forward, we still have to go talk to Merle. And the hope has to be Merle's lies from way back then come back to haunt him again, because he acknowledges them today.
The best way to build a case against him was to use his statements. And the only way to do that was validate them. And the only person still alive who could validate them was going to be Merle himself.
We find out that Merle is living in Chandler, Texas, outside of Tyler.
So we headed right out to Texas immediately.
We had an address for him. To get out and go see this man for the first time, to meet him eye to eye and size him up, it was exhilarating. It really was. After 33 years, we believe that only he can explain Laverne's disappearance.
It's locked up tight. That's quite a lock on that front door.
Holy mama.
We find out that Merle is living in Chandler, Texas, outside of Tyler. We fly to Dallas and drive there.
The next step for us was we know that we were going to have to sit down with Merle. After 33 years, we believe that only he can explain Laverne's disappearance.
It's locked up tight. That's quite a lock on that front door.
Think this guy's a little paranoid?
Knocking on the door, looking around. Merle's not at home. So it was a big downer, you know, the anticipation, the hype, and then he's not there. We find out he goes to gun shows and he portrays himself as a wounded veteran. We know he's active in his scams. But then we're trying to find this man. Is that him?
Hey, sir, your name isn't Merle, is it? No? You know a guy named Merle? Mackey? No? Thanks a lot.
And we just find everybody but him. So again, the anticipation of, is that him? Is that him?
We put surveillance on his house.
No, he's still not here.
He's still locked up.
Yeah.
We were searching any place that we could find.
We had additional local law enforcement help us out, surveil his house for a few days, trying to take any preparations we could to make sure we get a hold of him, because he could flee anywhere in the country.
It was just a really frustrating feeling, because no matter how many times we went by that trailer, day or night, there was no movement. We could not catch him at home. I can still see the trailer in my head and beat on the doors.
Ultimately, we weren't able to locate Merle. And then it was time for us to pack up, because we had the whole cold justice team as well as George and I, and we had no Merle. Not being able to meet up with the one person that could really shine some light on this case was very disappointing.
It was time to tell Kelly the result of our investigation, and that was not a conversation that we were looking forward to. All of our hopes were on George and on us, and we had to be straight with her about how the week went. So right now, this case is in limbo until we can find Merle. And I also want you to know that I'm talking to you feeling like I'm talking to myself, because what happened to you could have happened to me with my situation growing up with my stepdad.
It's 34 years of the ups and downs and hoping and wishing and praying. And once again, no answer.
I wish we could give you better
all you've done.
Better news.
It was devastating.
I just remember feeling really, really tired. Like maybe we're beating our heads against a wall and getting people's hopes up for nothing. And maybe we shouldn't keep doing this if we're just going to let people down.
I'll be talking to you soon, okay?
Okay.
I had told Kelly Carpenter, I said, I'm not going to forget your mother. I'm not going to forget you. This case is not going to go cold. Now it's hot, and we're going to finish it.
George is a bulldog, and he won't let go of a bone. So when we left, and George's plan was to keep looking for Merle, we didn't know if they would find him, how this was all going to turn out. We didn't really know. The chances where you get him in the right situation where he was going to sit down and talk and to go over a transcript and try and lock him into all those different stories and keep it friendly and try to find out more information, those odds were not very good. I would have put him at pretty slim.
I got a call from a young deputy from Henderson County Sheriff's Office in Texas. It was the call we were waiting for. Merle Mackey returned home.
At that moment, that whole excitement started to build again, starting to play this out in my head before getting there. Exactly what approach, how we're going to talk to him. It's kind of like a pregame, game plan.
Detective Williamson and I got right on the first plane out to Texas. We want to run him down. We don't want him running off again. There's a lot riding on this. This is our only shot. Merle had checked into a local motel. It's game time now. And the door opens up, and there's this old man standing there, and it's Merle. We introduce ourselves and let him know, Merle, we're detectives from Hernando County, Florida, and you got a minute?
Once and for all, we're finally going to get to speak with Merle.
Detective Williamson came up with this plan that we went over with, because we don't just talk to him on the street. We want to get him into an interview room. We knew that from previous information we had that all he cared about was money. We used the ruse. There's a plane crash in South America. There's some human remains found. We think it's Laverne.
We told him that maybe the airlines owes you some money. So in order to collect on that money, we need to just go to the station so that we can document her missing. So there had to be something in this for him in order for him to do it.
He agreed. He said, yeah, sure, okay, I'll come talk to you guys. Walk out and like, yes, to try to contain our excitement.
We were able to con a con. Here we are after 34 years. In this room, we finally have Merle Mackey exactly where we want him. We knew we had one chance to get Merle to talk to us. I have played this interview in my mind 100 times before this, because I already know what the answers are. I just need him to say them. And if we didn't get him to talk to us, it would have all been for nothing.
Do you remember the day she left?
She left me. She didn't say anything to me at all. She just didn't come back. I have no idea.
Well, where did she tell you she was going?
She didn't tell me a thing. She just didn't come home.
I assume this is Mr. Pat for me.
It had been previously talked about and strategized that I would do this interview. We were fairly close in age. We could perhaps relate. And going back to the old evidence, the only thing we really had was transcript statements of the interview with Merle Mackey. And the contradictions of those statements is something that we could use against him and prove that he was, in fact, constantly changing his story. So in order to use those and to figure out a way, if we're going to build a case against him to get him into court, they have to be authenticated.
I know you've been interviewed on this thing before, okay? And I've got the transcripts of those interviews and things that were said.
Our first initial goal, get him to validate those statements. Then we'd call him out on the rug and go for broke.
Now I've got to redo those interviews so I can get them to close this case.
In 1981, in Florida at the time, second-degree murder had statute of limitations on him. So in this case, first-degree murder was the only crime that we would be able to charge an individual with.
For a crime that's 33 years old, the only way this case was going to get prosecuted is if it was, in fact, a first-degree murder case. It created a great challenge at being able to prove that it was a premeditated murder when all this time had passed already. We had a high hurdle to get over, but we certainly wanted to give it our best shot.
So would this be an accurate account then, you think?
I don't imagine why it wouldn't be.
Do you remember the day she left?
No. I'm trying to think what was
Come on.
significant.
All right. Work with me here, buddy.
I pushed him a little bit in the interview, especially in the beginning, to get him so that he feels it, so he's not shocked by that first push, because I was always afraid that he would shut down on me if I tried to pull that trigger too fast or tried to go at him too hard.
Do you remember her ever saying something about her brother's wife being sick?
I don't recall that at all.
And we'll go from
I can't
there.
even remember what I ate for supper yesterday. Most of that.
This guy is already playing the game that he doesn't know anything and he don't remember anything.
The day she came up missing, were you at work or what's the deal there? Pick that brain a little bit.
I don't have any clue.
We don't get him beyond this, we have nothing. So there was a big surge to convince him that he remembers more than he's willing to admit that he remembers.
When she left, Do you remember going to the bank and getting money out of the bank?
Merle thought it was going to be like the past where he could just tell a few fairy tales and walk away. But Detective Williamson wanted to start to push Merle and let him know we know the truth and that we can prove it.
The bank remembers you going to the bank and getting money out of the bank.
I don't know how much I got.
I could tell you, but I'm not going to. I'm going to validate these interviews, and you're making it hard on me. And I thought we'd be in and out of here in about 45 minutes.
Well,
but this is going a little further.
I can leave.
The circumstances are very, very fragile. They have no legal right to detain Merle. He can leave anytime he wants to, and if they push him too far, he will leave, and that will be the end of the investigation.
I think George's eyesight's a little better, and he may be able to recall this a little quicker because he knows it. I'm going to ask George to come in here and read some of this, because maybe we can validate some of it.
I didn't feel like I could read those transcripts and read Merle at the same time. So at that time, I asked Detective Lloydren to come in and give me a hand.
Anytime I walk into an interview room, and particularly in this case with Merle Mackey, the stakes are high, the tension's high.
Once he came in, you could see he was a little more uneasy.
This is an interview that you had here. He said, well, she already had the suitcase packed and all that stuff. She's going to take it with her. Do you remember why she told you she needed to go again?
Her brother's wife was sick. Now, I don't remember what she was sick from.
Had she ever gone up and took care of her brother or his wives or anything before?
I don't think so.
Was that the first time?
Yeah.
So as I start reading some of the transcripts, he begins remembering.
She said she was going to be gone for a couple of weeks, and if she's gone a little bit longer, I just figured something needed a little more time.
3 times. That memory's a lot better than you remembered it.
He talks about going to the Keys.
I think we went more than one time, but this was after we were having trouble. Something that I discovered.
What's that?
She had been going with some guy that she worked with at the driver's license office.
And you said, I saw her. So he asked you, okay. You said, I saw her about a week after that phone call, second phone call. She had a green Cutlass. Remember that? You recall that?
He's so comfortable because he's just doing what he's done his whole life. He's conning. And that's what he thought he was doing to us.
You swear everything you said regarding this statements and all the statements you previously made is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Merle has one by one validated each one of those statements. Now it's time to take the gloves off, and now it's time to go for broke.
I wanted to go through your interviews because I wanted you to realize what you said back then.
It's time to tell him exactly what time it was, but to do it in such a way that he doesn't get up and walk out, that we don't lose him. At the same time, start taking control of the interview, letting him know that now there's jeopardy attached to this.
And did I kind of play a trick on you about the she's been found before? Yes, I did. Okay, and I apologize for that. But I didn't know any other way I could get you to walk through this story.
Upon telling him this, it definitely got his attention. He was actually focused on the game now.
Everything changed because we went from 20 miles an hour and shifted it up to 60 real quick.
Back on November the 5th, 1981, okay? Unfortunately, I think that it's something you've been hiding all of this time.
Now, the chess game has gotten serious because we're down to just a couple of castles and some queens here. And to convey that to him in such a way, without him shutting it down, it's a big concern. It's very scary.
And quite frankly, this is coming back to haunt you.
Be a lie in order to get me there.
Well, you know what?
I haven't confessed to
However,
anything.
this case went to Cold Case, which is us, and it's been put together. And it's coming, Merle. It's coming. And
what is coming?
You're fixing to be charged with this.
Charged with what?
The death of Laverne Mackey.
When we told Merle you're going to be charged with murder, it's a really bold move because we really have nothing at this point other than validation of all his previous statements, and they don't rise to the level of first-degree murder.
Merle,
put that in your head. You haven't arrested me.
Stop for a second, Merle. Just stop. You're fixing to be charged with this.
Charged with what?
The death of Laverne Mackey.
You haven't arrested me.
Stop for a second, Merle. Just stop for a second. Anything less than first-degree murder, the statute of limitations would have already been run out on. For first-degree murder, you must have an intent and have planned it out. It could be in a very short fashion, but it's something you gave forethought to.
If we can't get at the confession in this case, we had no case, and Merle will be walking free. Detective Williamson and I spoke about how to confront Merle after we were done validating his statements. We decided we're just going to go right at him and hit him with it and just tell him, we know you're lying. You're not going to walk out of this room without telling us the truth.
There are enough contradictions in your story here. Back then, you told so many different versions of what happened to her. One minute you say that she left and flew up to her brothers. No, she went and she ran off with another man. And then you told them that you went down to Key West and y'all were getting married again. And then there's you going draining her money out of the bank. Yes, you did that.
I wanted to convey to him that this investigation has been going on for an extensive amount of time and that we know exactly what he's been doing.
But your whole life has been a con. This is a con. You are the ultimate con man, and you work 3 different women in that church. What we did was chase down everybody because we wanted to go back and prove every single lie that you made.
We've talked to 15, 16, 17 people involved in around Laverne's life. We've gone through everything. Like Randy's telling you, it's for real.
Detective Williamson and I are throwing everything and anything we can at Merle. We want to try to see what he's going to bite on, but he still wants to try to out-con us and control the situation.
Now, wait a minute. Who says she's dead?
We know she is.
How do you know she's dead?
Merle Mackey's an old crook. He's used to this. He's not going to just fold under pressure. He's going to fight the issue.
How do you determine that Laverne is dead?
When he pushed back and said, who's saying she's dead? We pushed back a little bit harder. We are going to have to go for it all now.
I'm trying to get in here and reach this man that's in here. You can say whatever you want, but give that body back to her daughter so that she can flip and bury her. Please, please.
Trying to push Merle into doing what's right. So we're trying to appeal to any dignity or let him at least think that, you know, you got some humanity left and you do what's right, Merle. It's just to throw it out there so he still thinks that we think he's a good guy.
Tell me what we're at. Okay. Where are we at right now?
Merle,
I'm just waiting for a confession.
I could care less about the confession because I don't need it.
What I want him to believe is we don't need it. We've got all of this other stuff that says this is what happened to her. We just want her body.
What do you want?
I want a body. Bottom line, we want to know where she's at.
I do not know where her body is. I am not going to confess.
That is the one thing I don't want to hear, is the fact that he's not going to confess.
Now we have to let him know, listen, we're going to go into court. I'm going to go to the prosecutor, and this is the picture I'm going to paint.
When this story finally gets told, you are going to look like such a flippin' animal, such a flippin' lowlife. Give me the damn body. Because without the body, it looks like a first-degree murder in every way, shape, form, or fashion. It's the absolute truth. And then you add the cover-up to it afterwards. Does it look like a first-degree murder? Absolutely it does.
What I told him was give us the body or everybody's going to assume that it's first-degree murder because you let everybody else fill in the blanks. Feel like I gave him a choice to go one way or the other.
Will it work out best for you to tell me where that body is? Absolutely it will.
You're walking
I
out
am
here.
not convinced that.
Okay.
You're walking out here.
out that front door.
Okay.
3 man today.
Merle,
I can get up and leave at any time. Can I get up right now and leave?
Yeah.
Sure.
Giving him that option to walk through the door is to keep him moving. But there still has to be a way for Merle to see a way out the door if we're going to get him to continue this way.
I can tell you this, if she injured herself by accident, or if she did something like that, and you've been worried about all of this time, and you've just been afraid, out of fear, to come forward, Merle, can we prove there's a crime? I don't know.
It's very risky to tell him that it could have been an accident, because then it wouldn't be a first-degree murder and he was probably going to walk forever. We had no choice at that point. It's either this or nothing.
I can only tell you, I can sit here and look at you dead on. I'm reading you. I see that you want to talk and tell us where she is. I know you know. I can tell by looking at you.
We're pushing him, telling him that we know that Laverne is dead and we know that he killed her. And then there's a pause.
Did I tell you I like to go fishing?
Yes, you did.
Okay. I went fishing at Inglis. She fell at the dock, hit her head, fell in the water. I ain't seen her since.
It's colossal. It's an explosion in my brain that he's talking. He's taking ownership to being there at the time of her death, something he's never done.
Finally, for the first time, he's put himself at the scene where she dies. And the feeling just instantly comes over. We got there. We're there. The hardest step, we made it.
I have been back there 100 times, raving about that deal, that I didn't jump in the water and save her. I've been living with this for 32 years. I was scared they'd think that I killed her.
Merle now is telling a story of an accident. And at this point, I still don't believe the story yet. I don't believe that's all of it.
Why didn't you call for help and say, hey, she's in the water?
Her head was bleeding pretty bad.
Okay.
She was not breathing.
The body in the water, especially that one, it doesn't go away. Please.
I put some weight on her to take her body down. Okay. When I roped that rope around that woman and watched her sink, it's never gone away. It was an accident.
So an accident is not first-degree murder. First-degree murder requires proof of a premeditated intent to kill someone. And what Mr. Mackey's described to this point is an accident.
The only charge we have against him would be improper disposal of a dead body. And the statute of limitations are up on that, so we have absolutely nothing. We have nothing. Our murderer is going to walk out the door.
You telling me the truth right now? Or you bullshit me?
I'm telling you the straight business.
Well, Merle, I'm just going to ask you something right now. You telling me the truth right now? Or you bullshit me?
I'm telling you the straight business.
If Merle was to quit talking now and not say anything else, we have no murder charge against him. He can walk right out the door. So I want him to demonstrate where and how Laverne received the injury. I wanted to let him keep talking.
Yeah, Merle, you're picking her up.
I just took her clothes.
And you're pulling her, and you're taking her up out of the water?
Did you lift her back up onto the dock?
No, because she was, blood was just spurting out. Just spurting out.
He says one word, one phrase that changes the game, changes the entire course of our investigation.
It was just spurting out of there, and her mouth was just full of water.
Bleeding means that she still has a heartbeat, and she still has a pulse, and she's still alive.
I held her with one hand, I took the anchor, I put it on her, I wrapped it around her with the rope, and I turned her loose and shoved her underneath the dock.
Then he tells them that he decided to wrap an anchor around her chest and sink her to the bottom of the ocean. And that's first-degree murder. Because premeditation simply means that the person has made a conscious choice to kill.
I can't believe it. He thinks he's out tricking us and outsmarting us, but he just gave up that he murdered Laverne.
Just tell us where we can find her so we can give her body back to her kid.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
What will you do?
I will drive up to Florida, and I'll go with you to that dock.
Merle?
And I will call you as soon as I get there.
You could go there with us. You could drive in the front seat, and we could go there.
I don't want to do that. I'm done. I'm done. You want to argue? I don't want to argue. I said I will be in Florida, and I will show you the dock. And that's it. Okay, I'm done.
For him to get up and walk out the door after admitting to a first-degree murder and knowing that I can't arrest him at that moment is very frustrating.
Here we are, two Florida detectives in the state of Texas, where Merle was living, and although he made admissions to first-degree murder, he made these admissions out of our jurisdiction, where we have no authority and no arrest powers. So at this point, we're going to take what Merle said and get all our entire case together, present it to our prosecutor to see if he's willing to go forward with the case. Brian Kramer said, you know what? It's a great case. I'll take it. That was music to my ears.
We presented the case to the grand jury, and the grand jury quickly indicted Mr. Mackey for first-degree murder.
Once the grand jury indicted him, I flew out to New Mexico, where we observed Merle in front of a Walmart scamming other people. We then took Merle into custody. Felt great. It felt great to tell Merle you're under arrest for the murder of your ex-wife.
After we got back to Brooksville, I did call Kelly Siegler, and I was happy to make that phone call.
Randy, what happened?
He didn't do it all. And I basically told him the gig was up.
I could hear the exuberance in her voice on the other end. It was great.
Y'all did it, guys. Way to go. We were just like, oh my God, wow, oh my God. You got to go tell Kelly.
You know, it's an old case, and you get attached to people, and Kelly's a good person, and I wanted to let her know that we got Merle, and he's gonna be punished and answer for what he did to your mother.
It was so, yes. I just sat there and trembled and cried. It was just a great feeling, like this is finally gonna happen.
There are a lot of prosecutors who are hesitant to take on a cold case, much less one without a body. And I got to give props to Brian Kramer. That dude is a righteous prosecutor. He does his job.
In Florida, if you plead to first-degree murder, there's only two possible sentences, life and death. In order for him to not receive life or death, the state had to agree for him to plead to second-degree murder, and that's why we pled him to second. And at that point, I made the offer that he could serve 10 years in prison for the offense of second-degree murder, and eventually he agreed to that sentence.
A prosecutor can't get closure. What a prosecutor can get is justice. At the end, Merle Mackey had to stand up in a courtroom in front of Kelly and say he killed her mother and go to prison, and that's what matters.
It's nothing short of miraculous that this case came to a conclusion. Merle had been interrogated by a number of law enforcement personnel before, but these guys did the job and did it well.
I believe that Merle Mackey killed Laverne just for the money in a bank account. He could care less about her being a person, a human being.
Detective Lordgren and I later went to those docks where Mackey was talking about. We looked it over, and we came to the conclusion, there's no way her body's going to be found there. If it ever was there, there's only one person on this earth that knows exactly where Laverne Mackey is. And unfortunately, I don't know that he'll ever say the location of her body.
I don't want my mom to ever be forgotten. It's my duty, I feel, to carry on her legacy with me while I'm here and be able to share that with my family. My mom pops up in my thoughts at different times, different situations. There's always some small thing one day that will make me think about her. She's still touching my life.